He never raised his voice. He didn't chase attention. He didn't try to impress. And yet, when he entered the room, people noticed. Not because he demanded it, but because he commanded it. That's silent attraction. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. No grand speeches, no empty promises, just a presence, forged in discipline, clarity, and purpose." What if I told you that being attractive has little to do with looks or charm, and everything to do with how you carry yourself? In a world where everyone is shouting to be seen, the Stoic is silent and unforgettable. This is Diary Stoic, and today you're going to learn 10 socially attractive habits rooted in Stoic philosophy. Habits that require no performance, no pretending, and no approval from the outside world. You don't need flashy words to be magnetic. You don't need to chase people's attention. What you need is what Marcus, Epictetus, and Seneca lived by: self-respect, inner calm, and moral clarity. These are the invisible traits that people feel when you're in the room. Traits that make others trust you, admire you, and most importantly, respect you, without a single word. In this video, we'll go deep into the habits that create this kind of silent gravity. Each one is practical, each one is based on timeless Stoic principles, and each one will help you build a presence that speaks, even when you don't. We'll explore the power of restraint, the impact of integrity, the strength of emotional control, and how to walk through life with the quiet confidence of a Roman emperor. And stay with us until the end, because habit number 1 is the most powerful of all, the one that separates a man pretending to be stoic from a man who truly is. So if you've ever felt like you're overlooked, underestimated, or misunderstood, this video is for you, because true power doesn't beg to be seen, it's felt. Before we begin, drop this phrase in the comments to show you're ready to live like a modern Stoic. Power needs no noise. Let the world chase the spotlight. You'll become the kind of person whose silence says everything. Now let's begin with habit number 10. Habit 10 is to lead with stillness. In a world addicted to speed, noise, and attention-seeking behavior, the person who moves with calm intention becomes a rare force. Silent attraction begins here, not with charm or status, but with control. Stillness is not the absence of motion, but the presence of discipline. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. Epictetus taught that the more we react to external noise, the more we betray our internal power. When you lead with stillness, you are not passive. You are precise. You don't rush to speak. You don't compete for space. You don't broadcast your every thought. Instead, you observe, you breathe, and you act only when necessary. This makes your presence heavy, memorable, and respected. People lean into silence that carries strength. Stillness is magnetic because it signals mastery. It tells the world, I am not owned by my emotions, nor do I seek to control others through noise. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we should be like the rock the waves keep crashing over, unmoved. To embody this, you must slow down your reactions. When someone insults you or challenges you, you pause, not to avoid the situation, but to respond from principle, not ego. The person who cannot be provoked is dangerous in the best way. Their silence isn't fear, it's focused power. The second layer of this stillness is speech. Speak less and with purpose. Seneca advised that the wise man speaks only when his words will improve silence. In practice, this means eliminating filler, avoiding performance, and abandoning the need to prove yourself. When you speak, you do so with clarity and weight, not to impress, but to inform. This creates the kind of presence that doesn't chase validation. You also lead with stillness through your body. Posture, movement, eye contact. Stoic discipline extends to the way you sit, the way you walk, the way you enter a room. No fidgeting, no unnecessary gestures, just deliberate control. People feel this before they hear a word from you. Finally, stillness means learning to be alone. A man who enjoys solitude is a man who does not need the crowd. That kind of man cannot be manipulated, cannot be shaken by disapproval, and will not perform for applause. He walks through life with quiet certainty because he knows who he is, not because the world told him, but because he decided it. That is what makes you silently attractive. You don't need to prove your value. You live it. You don't need to announce your strength. You embody it. Stillness makes your presence unforgettable, not loud, not flashy, but unmistakably grounded. That's habit 10. And the person who learns to lead this way will never need to ask for respect. It will be given, wordlessly. Habit 9 is the mastery of emotional invisibility, the disciplined ability to experience powerful emotions without externalizing them. In a time where volatility is mistaken for authenticity and where people treat emotional exposure as virtue, the Stoic man becomes rare by not bleeding his inner chaos into the outside world. This is not about pretending to feel nothing. It is about owning what you feel without letting it own you. Marcus Aurelius, in the solitude of his writings, constantly reminded himself to remain indifferent to external praise or insult. The modern world incentivizes expression over regulation, but the person who can remain composed while storms rage inside commands attention without trying. Silent attraction lives here, in the eyes that don't flinch, the voice that doesn't shake, the tone that stays steady even when challenged. People feel drawn to that kind of presence because it offers safety. They may not know why, but they trust it. That trust is born from emotional restraint. When you refuse to dramatize your struggles, when you decline to perform your pain, when you walk through hardship with poise, your presence becomes heavier, deeper, and more respected. You become the one others look to in crisis, not because you have the answers, but because you are not ruled by fear or instability. This habit is forged through practice, through daily reflection, journaling, confronting your weaknesses without self-pity, and resisting the impulse to broadcast your emotions for sympathy or validation. You feel the emotion fully, but you keep your expression measured. You honor the experience, but you deny it the power to distort your presence. That is what separates the reactive from the centered, and that is why the Stoic man is silently and powerfully attractive. Habit 9 is the disciplined mastery of emotional invisibility, a trait misunderstood in today's culture where expression is often mistaken for courage, and the loud display of emotion is rewarded more than the quiet endurance of it. The Stoic, however, is not seduced by applause or sympathy. He does not seek to be seen struggling, nor does he beg for recognition in his suffering. Instead, he internalizes his emotional life, processes it with rational clarity, and chooses not to spill it over onto others. This does not mean he suppresses or denies what he feels. Quite the opposite. He allows every emotion to be felt fully, deeply, honestly, but he insists that they pass through the filter of reason before they are allowed to become action or expression. Marcus Aurelius, during times of war, betrayal, and immense pressure, wrote for himself, "Be indifferent to pain and pleasure, to blame and praise." His goal was not to become emotionless, but to become unmoved by that which he could not control. And that includes the chaos of his own heart. In the modern world, everyone is in a rush to share their pain, to document their anxiety, to project their emotional states onto the people around them. But the Stoic man knows that this behavior does not relieve suffering, it prolongs it. The more you perform your emotions, the more you are enslaved by them. Emotional invisibility means not allowing your face to betray every passing feeling, not allowing your mood to infect a room, and not demanding others adjust to your internal weather. This is not coldness, it is containment, it is strength. Imagine walking into a room and feeling instantly safer around a person. You don't know why, but something about them puts you at ease. They are not the loudest, not the most charismatic, but they carry a calm energy, an unshakable composure. That is what emotional invisibility creates. When you develop this habit, you become the anchor when others are drifting. You become the calm center of gravity that people lean on without even realizing it. This does not mean you don't feel anxiety or anger or grief, but you carry them without needing to display them. The Stoic trains for this daily. Through journaling, he confronts his fears before they control him. Through silence, he learns not to react. Through mindfulness, he learns to pause before speaking. Through hardship, he sharpens his endurance. Every time you choose to sit with discomfort instead of sharing it impulsively, you strengthen your frame. Every time you listen without responding from emotion, you earn quiet respect. Every time you choose dignity over drama, you become more rare, and what is rare becomes attractive. This habit, while internal, has massive external impact. You stop needing validation because your sense of value no longer depends on being seen or understood. You stop leaking your frustration because you've accepted that the world owes you nothing, and your peace is yours to protect. You stop performing your emotions to be accepted, and instead, you learn to regulate them so you can remain useful to others. This is not self-neglect, it is self-mastery. Epictetus taught that it is not events that disturb us, but our opinions about them, and the same is true for our feelings. You can feel rage without becoming it. You can feel despair without collapsing under it. You can feel fear without acting cowardly. The Stoic accepts emotion as data, not identity. He refuses to let his emotions narrate his reality or lead his decisions. The result is a presence that becomes unmistakably attractive because it offers stability in a world starving for it. Silent attraction is born here, in the practiced discipline of appearing calm, not because you're numb, but because you are in control. And people sense it. They are drawn to the man who doesn't over-explain, doesn't justify, doesn't beg for empathy. They are pulled toward the man who knows when to speak and when to be still, when to share and when to process in silence, when to show emotion and when to carry it in quiet strength. You do not have to be loud to be known. You do not have to be dramatic to be heard. You do not have to be exposed to be understood. The most silently attractive people are often the ones who say the least about themselves because they are too busy doing the hard, invisible work of mastery. This habit may not win you praise on social media. It may not generate instant connection, but it will make you unforgettable in person. And it will give you an internal freedom that no external praise can match. The world will keep telling you to be vulnerable, to be loud, to share everything. But the Stoic knows not everything that is felt must be spoken. Not every emotion must be shared. Not every wound must be seen. What must be done is the work. And that is done, most often, in silence. Habit 8 is to cultivate a presence of unshakable calm that others can feel before you ever speak. This kind of calm is not passive, nor is it fake confidence. It is the result of internal discipline practiced over time, a composure so steady, so grounded, that it becomes a stabilizing force for everyone around you. In a world full of reactivity, anxiety, and constant stimulation, a man who walks with deep calm becomes magnetic. Not because he tries to be, but because everyone else is so used to chaos that they instinctively gravitate toward peace. The Stoics believed that peace is not the absence of trouble, but the ability to remain undisturbed by it. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." That's where this habit begins, in rejecting the belief that you must control the external world to be at ease. You don't control the moods of others, the behavior of strangers, the opinions of peers, or the outcome of events. What you do control is how much these things disturb your inner world. When you stop giving external events permission to unsettle you, your presence becomes rare and deeply attractive. People begin to sense that you are not easily shaken, not because you don't feel, but because you do not let those feelings take command. You become the one who doesn't escalate tension, who doesn't mirror panic, who doesn't get swept up in the emotional energy of others. This doesn't mean you're disconnected. It means you're anchored. Anchored in principles, not reactions, in values, not moods. That anchoring is what people feel. Think of the difference between a man who reacts to every slight, every delay, every disruption, and the man who lets those things pass through him without drama. The first is emotionally common. The second is emotionally rare, and rarity creates value. You don't have to announce that you're calm. You don't need to prove it. The calm itself will speak for you. You demonstrate it through posture, the way you stand, the way you move, the way you occupy space without seeking attention. Through tone, the steady, low rhythm of your voice, unaffected by tension or urgency. Through behavior, the refusal to engage in gossip, outrage, or emotional escalation. All of this creates a quiet atmosphere of trust around you. People begin to associate your presence with peace. They come to you when things go wrong. They ask for your opinion when others are arguing. They follow your lead, not because you dominate, but because you contain. That is silent attraction at its highest level, and it cannot be faked. You cannot pretend to be calm. You must earn it through rigorous self-reflection, acceptance of reality, and daily resistance to the impulses that would have you react like everyone else. Calm is a practice. It is built through discomfort, by refusing to panic when things don't go your way, by taking a breath instead of firing back, by letting silence exist without needing to fill it. You build it in traffic, in long lines, in arguments, in delays, in disappointments. Every time you choose not to explode, you are laying another brick in the fortress of inner calm. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." That insight is central here. Most of our disturbances are not caused by life itself, but by our thoughts about life. The calm person is not the one who has an easy life. He is the one who has trained his mind to separate what is happening from what he believes it means. He doesn't say, "This is unfair," or "This is unbearable." He says, "This is happening." That shift alone removes layers of unnecessary suffering. And when you stop suffering unnecessarily, your demeanor changes. You no longer act out your pain. You no longer demand others manage your stress. You carry yourself with self-respect, and people feel that. The Stoics also teach that calm is not just for your benefit. It is an act of service. When you remain calm, you protect others from the contagion of chaos. You become the person who de-escalates conflict, who creates space for reason, who brings clarity into confusion. That kind of person becomes essential, not just liked, needed. And again, not because of words, but because of presence. Calm isn't loud. It's not performative. It doesn't ask for recognition. It simply is. And that's why it's so powerful. Imagine being the person who, in any room, brings the temperature down, who listens first, who doesn't flinch at criticism, who doesn't rise to bait, who doesn't overreact. That person becomes respected without having to raise their voice. They lead without trying. They attract without seeking. And it all begins with this habit, a quiet, unshakable calm, practiced in private, refined over time, and revealed in how you show up in the world. That is what it means to be silently attractive, not through charm, not through noise, but through self-mastery. A calm that cannot be disturbed because it is not borrowed from the world, but built within. Habit 7 is the disciplined refusal to participate in unnecessary conflict, drama, or emotional games, not out of fear, but out of strength. It is the cultivated ability to walk away from provocation without a word, to stay composed when others lose themselves, and to choose peace not because you cannot fight, but because you know when it is not worth it. The Stoics were warriors of the mind, trained to remain clear even in the midst of battle, but they also understood the greater war is often internal, the war between ego and reason. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you don't have to turn this into something. It doesn't have to upset you. That is the core of this habit. Silent attraction is amplified when you show restraint, when you possess the power to react, but instead choose stillness. In a world that rewards overreaction, defensiveness, and the endless exchange of opinions, the Stoic man becomes strikingly different. He doesn't argue to prove he's right. He doesn't get pulled into petty disputes. He doesn't let his ego dictate his behavior. He simply evaluates whether the energy spent will lead to something meaningful. If not, he lets it go. Not out of passivity, but because he refuses to let external noise govern his internal state. People will notice this. They will feel it. You don't flinch when criticized. You don't correct every misconception. You don't retaliate when provoked. You are not owned by the opinions of others, and you do not trade your dignity for the satisfaction of being right. That self-restraint is a rare and powerful form of presence. It signals that you are not controlled by impulse, nor are you trying to control others. You operate on your own terms, guided by principle, not pride. This creates a sense of unpredictability, not in the chaotic sense, but in the disciplined one. People begin to understand that you are not emotionally available for nonsense. They stop testing you, not because you intimidate them, but because they sense that trying to destabilize you is a waste of time. That calm detachment is silently attractive because it communicates that you do not need validation through conflict, attention through confrontation, or identity through opposition. You simply are. Imagine someone tries to insult you in public, expecting you to snap back, to defend yourself, to escalate. But you look at them, say nothing, and walk away with your posture untouched. That moment holds more weight than any witty comeback ever could. It shows you value your peace more than their opinion, that your standards for behavior are internal, not reactive, and that your energy is too valuable to be spent on empty battles. This doesn't mean you are weak or passive. The Stoic is prepared to defend truth, justice, and honor when it matters, but he knows the difference between meaningful confrontation and egoic sparring. He fights only when the fight is necessary, and when he does so with clarity, not rage. That makes him dangerous in the best way. People sense that you could destroy with words, but you choose silence. That you could dominate a conversation, but you choose to listen. That you could tear someone down, but you choose not to. That level of restraint builds quiet respect, not applause, not attention, but deep trust. It is also freedom. The freedom of not being pulled into emotional games. The freedom of not needing to explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. The freedom of walking away without guilt, without anger, without needing to win. This is earned. You don't wake up with this power. You cultivate it through reflection, through studying your own behavior, through asking yourself hard questions. Did I argue today because I needed to, or because I needed to feel superior? Did I speak because truth was at stake, or because my ego felt threatened? Did I stay silent because it was wise, or because I was afraid? Stoic discipline requires that kind of honesty. It is not about pretending to be above conflict. It is about knowing yourself so well that you don't fall into the traps others set. And even when conflict finds you, you meet it on your terms, with clarity, calm, and force only when required. That balance of being peaceful but not passive, strong but not aggressive, is what makes your presence silently magnetic. You are the one people want in the room when tension rises. the one they trust to keep his head, the one they know will not embarrass himself or them through emotional overreaction. That's power, that's control, and in a society that feeds on outrage, your quiet refusal to participate becomes not only attractive, it becomes revolutionary. Seneca said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." The same applies here. It is not the man who is criticized, insulted, or challenged who is weak. It is the man who needs to respond, who needs to be seen winning, who needs the last word, who is truly controlled. Silent attraction demands that you need nothing from these moments. Not recognition, not revenge, not attention. You already have what matters, your peace, your clarity, and your inner standard, and that makes you unshakable. Habit 6 is to speak with deliberate weight, not with volume, not with quantity, but with intentional precision that leaves a mark. In a world saturated with noise, opinions, and endless commentary, the Stoic man becomes attractive through the uncommon restraint of his words. He does not speak to be heard. He speaks because he has something worth saying. And even then, he often waits. Seneca warned that speech, if not measured, becomes wasteful, and worse, revealing of a mind that has not been trained. Silent attraction is strengthened not only in moments of silence, but in the few words you allow to leave your lips. Your voice becomes magnetic when it is rare and necessary, when it carries clarity, not clutter, when you choose depth over frequency. Consider the impact of a man who says little, yet when he does, people listen, not out of fear, but out of respect. Because he is not always talking, his speech becomes meaningful. That's a man whose presence lingers, whose silence isn't awkward but intentional, whose sentences seem like decisions rather than habits. This habit of speaking with weight is born from restraint, from training yourself to pause, to reflect, to ask, does this need to be said? Does it help? Does it align with my principles? If the answer is no, the Stoic says nothing. This silence isn't passive. It's powerful. You watch the room, you listen fully, you let others exhaust themselves with noise, and when you speak, it cuts through all of it. That is silent attraction in action, not loud, but commanding. Most people talk to fill time, to reduce discomfort, or to seek validation. The Stoic talks to express truth, and only when truth must be spoken. He is not seduced by the urge to reply instantly. He is not pulled into meaningless debates. He doesn't share every opinion because he knows that not every opinion needs to be known. He does not brag because he knows real value is recognized without explanation. And he never tries to dominate a conversation because he knows power doesn't require dominance. When you speak less but with more control, your words gain gravity. Others feel that you are not performing, you're not hoping to be liked. You are simply delivering what is necessary and then returning to your silence. That behavior builds trust. It builds mystery. It builds strength. People begin to interpret your silence as confidence. They realize you don't need their attention, and that is precisely why you hold it. Every time you resist the urge to over-explain yourself, to fill a silence, to correct someone needlessly, to win an argument, you are becoming more powerful. Every moment you practice pausing before you speak, you sharpen the edge of your presence. You become unpredictable, not because you're hiding something, but because people can't read your every thought, and they don't need to. The Stoic knows mystery is a form of influence, not manipulation, influence born from restraint. You are not unreadable out of fear, but out of discipline. You know who you are. You don't need to prove it through words. Epictetus taught that we should be more concerned with becoming good than appearing good. And nothing reveals the need to appear good more than excessive speech. The man who needs to explain his every move, his every feeling, his every belief, is often looking for permission or agreement. The Stoic speaks because he has already decided what he believes, and whether others agree or not is irrelevant. That indifference gives your voice weight, not arrogance, certainty. When you eliminate the need to be understood by all, you gain the freedom to speak only when it matters. And when you do, your voice becomes a signal of clarity in a world clouded by noise. The man who develops this habit becomes the person others look to when truth is needed. When confusion fills the air, your calm tone clears it. When emotion blinds the group, your calm observation realigns it. And even when you say nothing, people sense that you are thinking, that you are engaged, present, but not rushed. That presence alone is attractive. Not because you are trying to appear wise, but because you are not trying to be anything. You are simply practicing discipline. Speaking less is a sacrifice. It is the refusal to indulge your ego. It is the surrender of the impulse to prove, to perform, to impress. And that sacrifice is noticed, especially in a culture where constant speech is mistaken for confidence. The Stoic knows better. True confidence is quiet. It is comfortable with gaps in conversation. It lets others speak without needing to interrupt. It asks questions instead of making declarations. And it speaks last, not out of hesitation, but out of observation. That kind of presence makes people feel like you see more than you say, and that makes them trust you more than those who speak endlessly. There is a difference between being talkative and being expressive. The Stoic favors expression through action. He lets his conduct speak louder than his commentary. He lets results speak for his intentions. He lets silence speak when others expect words. And when he finally speaks, his voice lands like stone, not because of volume, but because of substance. This habit, once internalized, reshapes your presence permanently. You become respected without promotion. You become heard without shouting. You become followed without asking. And you become remembered not for how much you said, but for how little you needed to. Habit 5 is the ability to remain centered regardless of the energy around you, to walk into a room full of anxiety, ego, or chaos and not be pulled off balance. The Stoic calls this living according to your own nature, not the nature of the crowd. Silent attraction reaches a new level when you become immune to emotional contagion. When your internal state is not dictated by the loudness, fear, or desperation of others. This is more than emotional control. This is sovereignty. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that if it is endurable, then endure it, and if it cannot be endured, then cease complaining. That clarity of responsibility, the refusal to let outer noise control inner stillness, is rare in today's culture of overstimulation. People today adapt instantly to the energy around them. Someone raises their voice and they mirror it. Someone panics and they join in. Someone gossips and they contribute. But the Stoic does not mirror. He holds. He remains exactly who he is, regardless of what others do. That holding of your center, that unshaken commitment to inner principles, is one of the most quietly powerful forces you can cultivate. It means you do not get louder because others do. It means you do not change your values because they're unpopular. It means you do not adjust your posture to fit into places where calm is seen as weakness. Instead, you remain calm on principle. You move slow because you've thought things through. You don't respond to bait. You don't explain yourself to those who provoke without sincerity. You live as a mountain lives, still, regardless of wind or storm. This kind of presence builds deep trust and deep respect. People may not agree with you. They may not even understand you, but they will feel you, and they will return to that presence again and again because it gives them something their own mind cannot: calm without collapse. This doesn't mean you are emotionally unavailable. It means you are emotionally disciplined. You feel fully, but you choose expression consciously. You don't vent, lash out, or complain. You don't declare yourself a victim when life resists your will. Instead, you say, as Epictetus advised, "I will keep my will in harmony with nature," which means accepting what is outside your control and focusing completely on what is within it. Your response, your tone, your thoughts, your effort. That focus becomes magnetic. In group situations, you become the one who doesn't need to talk over others to be heard. You don't lose your structure when tension rises. You don't melt under pressure. People instinctively move toward your stability, not because you asked, but because you trained for it. Every time you remain composed under pressure, you signal strength. Every time you decline to retaliate, you reveal control. Every time you maintain your tone when being tested, you demonstrate mastery. That kind of consistency cannot be faked. It must be earned. And once earned, it makes you impossible to ignore. You don't have to be the loudest, smartest, or most entertaining person in the room. You just have to be the most grounded. That alone makes you rare. And again, what is rare becomes valuable. The Stoic is not trying to be stoic. He simply lives according to principle, and the result is a quiet charisma that doesn't announce itself. There's no effort to impress. There's no need to validate his presence. He doesn't interrupt or overshare. He's not scanning the room for attention. He is simply there, fully, calmly, unbothered by approval or rejection. And that is what people feel. The modern man is overstimulated, always reacting, always chasing validation. The Stoic man is still. He holds his lane. He maintains his frame. And because he does, he becomes deeply attractive to those who are silently begging for calm in a chaotic world. This habit of inner centering begins in solitude. It begins in your morning, before the noise begins. Through journaling, meditation, physical discipline, and reflection, you establish who you are before the world tries to define you. And then you carry that self into every environment. You adapt, but you don't abandon. You adjust, but you don't conform. You observe, but you don't absorb. This is what makes your presence unforgettable. Not because you say the right things, but because your energy is no longer reactive. It's rooted. You're not a thermometer, rising and falling with others. You're a thermostat, setting the tone. That is silent attraction. That is what makes you walk through the world without needing recognition, because your recognition comes from within. And that is the kind of person the Stoics trained to become, and the kind of man you are becoming now. Habit 4 is to carry yourself with quiet integrity, not the kind that seeks credit or admiration, but the kind that lives in the shadows of your decisions, choices, and habits. This form of integrity does not require an audience. It does not need to be validated by applause or recognition. It simply is, and it speaks louder than anything you could ever say about yourself. The Stoics believed that virtue is its own reward. Epictetus taught that the good man does not do good for attention. He does it because it is right. And in the modern world, where image is curated and virtue is often performed, this quiet form of integrity becomes rare, and therefore deeply attractive. Silent attraction is not about what people see. It is about what they sense. And when a person senses that you live by your word, that you respect your principles even when no one is watching, that your private life aligns with your public life, they begin to trust you in a way that cannot be explained, only felt. This trust creates a kind of gravity, a weight to your presence that no charm or appearance can replace. Quiet integrity shows in small, invisible ways, in doing the hard thing when it would be easier to lie, in keeping a promise when it would be convenient to break it, in refusing to participate in dishonesty, gossip, or manipulation, in honoring your routines when no one is checking, in respecting yourself enough not to betray your values for approval. Every time you choose the path of principle over the path of ease, you become stronger. You become more real. And people can feel that, not because you talk about it, but because your presence holds it. It's in the way you don't chase status. It's in the way you're not performative. It's in the way your actions are consistent. This consistency is rare in a world addicted to optics. Most people adjust themselves constantly to fit the expectations of others. But the Stoic holds his shape. He does not bend himself to trends, popularity, or convenience. He lives in alignment with logos, the rational order of nature, and in doing so, finds an inner coherence that makes his presence calm, clear, and powerful. Integrity is not a word, it's a structure, a scaffolding built by daily choices, and when people interact with you, even briefly, they feel that structure. They may not understand it, they may not comment on it, but they sense that there is something intact about you, something solid, something that doesn't sway. That feeling is silent attraction, and it cannot be copied, because it requires sacrifice. You must say no to things others say yes to. You must walk away from opportunities that require you to compromise your soul. You must choose honesty even when it costs you. You must speak the truth even when it isolates you. And you must do all of this without making it a performance. The moment you look over your shoulder to see who's watching, you've stepped out of integrity. The Stoic does not perform. He lives, and his life, lived quietly, honorably, and consistently, becomes a form of persuasion far more powerful than rhetoric. Seneca said, "He who does good does it without show. He who receives good remembers it without pride." This is the foundation of quiet integrity, humility. You do not use your morality as a weapon. You do not present yourself as superior. You simply remain loyal to your standards. And that loyalty creates a peace inside you, the peace of not hiding anything, of not fearing exposure, of knowing that who you are in the dark is the same as who you are in the light. That kind of peace radiates. It creates a calm confidence. It frees you from pretending. And when you stop pretending, you become present, fully present, not distracted by what others think, not calculating every move, not adjusting to be more likable, just present, sincere, and clean in your motives. That clarity is deeply attractive because it is deeply rare. And people feel safe around someone who isn't hiding anything, not because you overshare, but because your actions reveal everything they need to know. You don't need to say, "I'm trustworthy." You simply behave in ways that require no defense. You don't need to say, "I'm disciplined." Your habits make it obvious. You don't need to say, "I'm honest," because you do not lie, even when lying would benefit you. That is the level of integrity the Stoic cultivates, and it is the kind of presence that others cannot explain but cannot forget. Not because of what you did in front of them, but because of who you clearly are behind the scenes. That silent attraction, not manufactured, not marketed, just lived. Habit 3 is to move through the world with quiet self-respect, a presence built not on arrogance or bravado, but on an unshakable understanding of your own worth that does not need to be announced. The Stoic does not seek approval to justify his value. He does not wait for others to validate his existence. He chooses to live in alignment with nature, with virtue, and with reason, and that alone becomes his identity. In today's culture, where confidence is often confused with volume, and self-worth is measured by likes, attention, or external achievement, the Stoic becomes a mystery. He walks into a room not needing to dominate, not needing to be the center of attention, but still manages to command respect. Why? Because his energy is unbothered. His posture speaks of a man who is whole, not hungry for affirmation. This kind of self-respect isn't loud. It doesn't manifest in defensiveness or competition or status games. It shows up in silence, in the way he says no without over-explaining, in the way he doesn't lower his standards to be liked, in the way he removes himself from disrespectful situations without complaint. Self-respect begins internally. It's in how you talk to yourself when no one is around, in how you honor your commitments, not because someone else is watching, but because you said you would, in how you treat your body, your mind, your space, your time, not as resources to be exploited, but as sacred duties to be maintained. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." So if you constantly think of yourself as less, as behind, as needing to prove something, your soul will shrink to match. But when you live according to nature, which is reason, order, and purpose, you begin to carry yourself with quiet dignity. You don't seek to impress because you are not performing. You don't chase recognition because you're already acting according to your values. And you don't compete with others because you've stopped viewing life as a stage for comparison. You walk with self-respect because your life is your own, and that alone makes you magnetic. People sense when a person is grounded. They feel when someone is not looking for validation. It frees up space in the room. You're not adding to the noise. You're not one more person trying to be someone. You are simply being. That simplicity is power. Self-respect also manifests in boundaries. Not aggressive, not reactive, just firm. You don't tolerate disrespect, not because you need to fight, but because you refuse to participate. You don't argue with people who twist your words. You don't chase apologies. You don't lower your standards to maintain company. You allow people to exit your life if they must, and you do so without bitterness. That ability to release people, opportunities, or circumstances that violate your peace is not detachment. It is self-honor, and it communicates more than any argument ever could. The Stoic man understands that how he treats himself is how the world will eventually treat him, so he speaks to himself with discipline, but not cruelty, with correction, but not shame. He forgives himself without letting himself off the hook. He grows, but he does not rush to perfection. He is building a character, and character, unlike image, cannot be faked. The more you live with quiet self-respect, the more your presence will shift. You will say less. You will smile more, not because you need to be liked, but because you are not burdened by pretense. You will stop asking people what they think of you, because you already know who you are. And in that knowing, you become a source of peace to others, a reference point, a reminder that stillness is strength. Self-respect also means not betraying yourself, not making promises you know you won't keep, not agreeing to things that go against your values just to avoid conflict, not laughing at jokes that cross your moral line, not pretending to be okay with things that violate your sense of what's right. The Stoic understands that every small betrayal of the self chips away at presence. You become weaker with every compromise. But when you refuse to abandon your post, when you hold the line even in the smallest details, your internal world strengthens, and your external presence begins to carry the weight of that unseen consistency. That's what people are drawn to. That's why silent attraction works, because it's not about what's visible, it's about what's felt. And what's felt most deeply in this world is someone who has made peace with themselves, someone who is done trying to be accepted, and who instead has chosen to accept responsibility for who they are becoming. That is the kind of presence that does not need to speak loudly. It just is. And that presence is what you build when you commit to the path of quiet self-respect. Habit 2 is to develop emotional independence, the capacity to experience inner peace without requiring others to provide it. The Stoic man does not outsource his stability. He does not place the weight of his happiness, confidence, or identity into the hands of another person, trend, institution, or circumstance. He understands what Epictetus taught. Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. And nothing lies more outside your control than how others see you, treat you, or respond to you. Silent attraction becomes most powerful when you stop needing to be emotionally fed by the outside world. When you stop measuring your self-worth by how many compliments you receive, how many people text you back, how much approval your lifestyle gets. That withdrawal from emotional dependence makes you invincible in the eyes of others. Not because you are unreachable, but because you are internally self-sufficient. You are no longer emotionally hungry. You're no longer seeking to be fixed, praised, rescued, or seen. You simply carry yourself with the peace of someone who has already built a home within, and this isn't arrogance, it's the reward of doing the inner work. It means you've faced your neediness, your insecurity, your loneliness, and chosen to stop running from them. You've learned to sit in your own presence without distraction. You've learned to console yourself without asking others to do it for you. You've developed rituals of reflection, writing, walking, observing, so that when your emotions rise, you don't need another person to regulate you. You regulate yourself. That's rare, that's respected, that's deeply attractive. Because most people still operate like children, waiting for someone else to make them feel better, to affirm their worth, to tell them they matter. But the Stoic understands that any emotional comfort you rely on from the outside is a vulnerability, a pressure point that can be used against you or taken from you. So he detaches not from love, not from humanity, but from need. He loves from abundance, not from lack. He connects without clinging. He supports others without becoming their crutch. That balance creates a unique presence. People sense that you are whole on your own. You don't need them, and that makes them respect you more, because you are not in their life out of dependence, but out of choice. You are not performing for attention. You are not signaling for approval. You are not begging to be seen. You are there, calmly, steadily, because you want to be. That kind of emotional independence removes pressure from every interaction. Others feel freer around you because you are not extracting energy from them to survive. You become a source, not a sink. And sources are rare. To build this habit, you must study yourself ruthlessly. You must ask, where am I still seeking external reassurance? Where do I feel empty when alone? What am I expecting others to fix in me? And then you must confront those places with discipline. You must remove the idea that another person's behavior should dictate your peace, that their love, interest, validation, or acceptance is the key to your self-respect. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That is not a metaphor. It is the literal foundation of a grounded life. Until your mind becomes your own, and no longer the property of every passing comment, compliment, or rejection, you will be a prisoner. The Stoic chooses to be free, and freedom begins with emotional independence. It shows up in subtle but powerful ways. When someone disrespects you, you don't spiral, because their opinion never held your identity. When someone compliments you, you receive it, but you do not become inflated, because you know your value isn't increasing or decreasing based on the perceptions of others. You are stable, like bedrock beneath a river. The water moves, you don't. That kind of steadiness is not loud. It is not showy. It does not need to explain itself. It is simply felt. People begin to notice that your mood doesn't swing with the crowd, that your energy isn't needy, that you don't crumble when alone, that you don't beg to be chosen. And that is what creates silent attraction, the sense that you are not looking for someone to complete you. You are already whole, and therefore, the relationship or connection becomes a bonus, not a lifeline. That space, that freedom, that internal solidity, it all comes from this habit, and it makes you powerful in the eyes of those who are still searching for themselves in others. The Stoic is not without emotion. He simply refuses to be ruled by it. He doesn't suppress his feelings. He studies them, understands them, decides what role they will play, and through this self-regulation, he builds an inner life that is no longer at the mercy of the world. That's why his silence speaks louder. That's why his presence relaxes others. That's why his relationships last longer, because he brings peace instead of demanding it. And that is the essence of emotional independence and the silent attraction it produces. Habit 1 is to become the master of your impulses, to train your will so completely that no external force, no inner emotion, no fleeting desire can pull you away from your principles. This is the summit of Stoic discipline, the crown of silent attraction, and the rarest quality in the modern world: self-command. The Stoic doesn't seek to control others. He seeks to control himself, because he understands what Marcus Aurelius wrote with crystal clarity. You must build your life action by action, and be content if each one achieves its goal as far as possible. This means doing what needs to be done, regardless of mood, delay, recognition, or reward. To live this way is to become unshakable, not by pretending to be emotionless, but by refusing to be enslaved by your impulses. Most people are at the mercy of what they feel in the moment. They say what they don't mean. They make promises they can't keep. They chase quick pleasure and call it passion. They run from discomfort and call it intuition. But the Stoic knows, freedom is not doing what you want. Freedom is having the strength to do what is right, even when you don't want to. That's self-command. And when you meet someone who lives this way, who doesn't flinch under pressure, who doesn't act out of rage, who doesn't quit when it's hard, you notice, not because they say anything, but because their every action, tone, posture, and decision radiates control. Silent attraction is never louder than in this quality, because self-mastery is the one trait that cannot be given, bought, or faked. It must be earned through the daily rejection of ease, through the decision to wake up early, even when tired, to eat with discipline, even when craving more, to speak with restraint, even when the ego wants revenge, to walk away from instant gratification in favor of long-term clarity. That kind of man becomes rare. And the rare man becomes magnetic. He becomes the one people call when things fall apart, because they know he won't panic. He becomes the one others want to be around, not because he's entertaining, but because his presence calms the storm. He becomes the one people trust with secrets, respect in conflict, and follow without needing to be told, all because he owns himself. This habit transforms everything. It turns weakness into willpower. It turns chaos into composure. It turns reactivity into sovereignty. When you develop it, you no longer have to explain your values. They are evident in your discipline. You no longer have to declare your strength. It's visible in how little controls you. You no longer have to ask for respect, because you carry yourself like someone who has already earned it from himself. And that is the most attractive thing in any human being, the presence of someone who doesn't need to be managed, saved, or motivated, someone who has made a quiet, serious commitment to live with intention. The Stoic achieves this not overnight, but moment by moment. He observes his habits. He tracks his failures. He forgives himself without excusing himself. He stays humble enough to know the work is never done, but he does not stop, because he knows no empire, no relationship, no reputation, no legacy is more important than mastering the self. You can lose everything else, but if you keep your discipline, you remain undefeated. This is not about perfection, it is about commitment. When you fall, you rise faster. When you slip, you return to the path. When your emotions rage, you don't obey them. You listen, then lead. That's command, and the world is starving for it. In a time where most are addicted to impulse, where attention, emotion, appetite, and distraction rule the average person, the one who can walk with calm restraint becomes a leader, a presence, a mystery, because others cannot figure out how you remain so stable, so focused, so calm, and yet so intense. The secret is not external. It is this habit. The willingness to do what is right, consistently, regardless of mood. the ability to delay gratification, to control reactions, to master yourself. The world doesn't teach this. It teaches indulgence, comfort, instant validation. But the Stoic knows the cost of such a life, and he refuses to pay it. Instead, he pays the daily price of discipline, and over time, that payment turns into power. Not dominance, not ego, but presence. The kind of presence that doesn't need to impress, because it has become undeniable. That is silent attraction at its highest level. And that is what you build when you commit to mastering this first and final habit, self-command. So now you've walked through 10 habits, 10 silent practices that, when internalized, turn you into someone unforgettable. Not because you tried to be, but because you finally stopped trying. In a world that runs on noise, on exposure, on endless self-promotion, the Stoic path takes you in the opposite direction. Inward, deeper, slower, more deliberate. This path isn't glamorous. It won't earn you applause. It won't trend, but it will make you strong, calm, whole. Because these habits are not for show. They are not about being seen. They are about becoming solid. When you lead with stillness, when you master emotional invisibility, when you cultivate inner calm, when you refuse to engage in conflict that violates your peace, when you speak with precision, when you remain centered no matter who you're with, when you walk with quiet integrity, when you carry yourself with self-respect, when you build emotional independence, and when you command your impulses, you become the kind of man who doesn't chase respect. He attracts it. Who doesn't beg for love. He embodies it. Who doesn't scream for attention. His presence speaks louder than his voice ever could. That's what Stoicism gives you, not the illusion of control, but the discipline to live with what you can control, and the peace to release what you cannot. The modern world is loud, but you don't have to be. You can be the calm one in the storm, the one who isn't shaken by rejection, the one who doesn't flinch when tested, the one who remains composed in uncertainty. That doesn't come from pretending to be tough. It comes from building your character, day by day, choice by choice, from living with standards, not just feelings, from having a clear code, even when no one's watching. This isn't about dominance. It's about discipline, not about charm, but about clarity. The kind of clarity that makes people lean in when you speak and trust you even when you're silent. That's the essence of being silently attractive, not flashy, not popular, but powerful. With a presence that can't be copied and a peace that can't be taken. That's what we're building here at Diary Stoic. Not an image, but a foundation. You don't need the whole world to like you. You just need to become someone you're proud to live with, someone who respects himself enough to stand alone, to stay calm, to choose wisdom over impulse. If you've made it this far, it means there's something in you already reaching for that higher standard. Something in you that knows life isn't about performance. It's about alignment with what is true, with what is real, with what endures. And that is the path of the Stoic. Quiet, honest, relentless. You don't need to wear a label. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to begin, to pick one habit and live it fully, quietly, consistently. And when you fall, not if, when, you don't spiral, you don't dramatize, you don't abandon the path, you return to the work. Because it's not about never breaking. It's about building something inside you that cannot be broken for long, something forged in silence, strength that doesn't announce itself, peace that doesn't rely on others, presence that doesn't demand attention. Just calm, consistent, deliberate character lived in every room, in every season, through every test. This is the man the Stoics called eudaimon, the one who lives in harmony with his own nature. Not because it's easy, but because it's right. So wherever you are on this path, stay with it, quietly, persistently, without applause. Because the man who builds his foundation in silence is the man whose presence will one day speak for him louder than words ever could. And if this message resonates with you, if something inside you is ready to stop chasing and start building, then leave a comment with the words, "Calm is my strength. Let the world keep shouting." You'll lead with silence.